Right, welcome to We Got a Problem, guys. So we have the Labour MP Alison McGovern on the Politics Live show earlier today. She was complaining that the car manufacturer Ford will be closing its Bridgend engine plant next year. Her position is, of course, that the government should intervene and save a failing business, as you should all expect from the Labour Party. Now, she tries to lay the blame on Brexit, but that position is quickly shot down by Kate Andrews from the Institute of Economic Affairs, and to some extent the show's host Andrew Neil does similarly. Now, on the panel with Kate and Alison is the so-called economist Danny Blanchflower, who is a dedicated Remainer and possibly the worst economist the world has ever known, but we will deal with him later. And finally on the panel with the previously mentioned guests is the Tory minister Nadhim Zahawi. Let's watch the first clip and begin to pick apart the ridiculous claims made by the Labour MP and this so-called economist.
For that, so the Bridgend engine plant to close in September of 2020 next year. Alison McGovern, is this another victim of Brexit, or is it simply part of a global restructuring of the car industry?
Well, there are big problems in automotive, and what manufacturing needs is government activism little and often, long before you get to these crisis moments. So the government long ago should have done something about business rates, about energy bills, and allowed better investment into manufacturing, including automotive.
How would that have helped Bridgend?
Because what you need is to make British manufacturing competitive, and the government has a massive role to play there. But you can't just...
But hold on.
Sorry.
The plant is going to close in September of next year because Jaguar Land Rover are going to stop buying its engines in September of next year. What would the government, should the government do about that?
So the challenge in the car industry is that there are not huge profits here. So we need to reduce costs year on year, and the government could have helped. I went to see ministers about dealing with the business rates 3 or 4 years ago, and they never took those steps. If, Andrew, you lay a Brexit on top of that, then that's why we're at this crisis point now. So I would ask the government, even at this late stage, to consider what steps they can take. Clearly, the Bridgend economy is going to need help to get through this.
That's
what they
helping
need
the
to
economy is another matter. The question is what could be done to stop this. The Jaguar Land Rover has not stopped buying these engines because they're too expensive. They stopped buying them because they don't need them.
So as you see there, Neil loads the first question from the start by saying, is this a product of Brexit? Which he knows full well this decision is not Brexit related. But he puts a line out there to the Remoaner MP and the world's greatest economist, Danny Blanchflower, for them to begin their spiel about government saving this engine plant, which to his redemption Andrew Neil does reject. Of course, the MP bites and tries to blame Brexit, even if it does take her about 30 seconds to do it. She begins by attempting to blast the incompetent Tory government for not intervening and lowering business rates along with energy bills, and how investment would have allowed this engine plant to compete. Acting like this closure is related to the economy, because that will help her push her narrative that Brexit has cost the 1,000 or so people that work there their jobs. This will of course appeal to the public heartstrings, as it's not good that people they might lose their jobs. There's no guarantee they will. But in actual reality, Jaguar Land Rover, who no longer need the engines made at this plant, so it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of the engine is not required anymore, the model of car is not made, or the model of cars. They use different engines now. Now I expect that she fully knows this even before coming on the show, but she has no interest in the truth. The economist, on the other hand, likely has no clue. Even if he did, he would still choose to ignore it like Alison has. The Labour Party have obviously told them to peddle the scare tactic now the NHS scare tactic is dead in the water, in an attempt to betray the democratic vote in 2016, as is standard procedure for the Lib Dems and Labour Party these days. She continues to argue and complain that the car industry does not have huge profits. This might come as a bit of a shock to her sensitive nature, but so fucking what? They're private companies. Their finances should not be of concern to the government or the opposition party. The market is saying we don't need these engines anymore. The company owners would have known this before today, and as the host has clearly indicated by his response, they did know in advance and did nothing, so why should people foot the bill for it? She then doubles down on the business rates line while throwing Brexit in there like it made a difference, since we've already heard the company who buys the engine no longer needs them because they have new engines, so business rates mean fuck all, as there is no business for their product after next year when the contract runs out. It's got nothing to do with Brexit. This was decided before Brexit was even a thing. How did this woman even become an MP when she lacks the basic ability to comprehend supply and fucking demand? There is no demand, then we don't need to supply. So money from tax is not going to be there. So how would giving them tax cuts actually help? They won't be making the money anymore, genius. Is it just me, or is Alison sounding like the UK's very own version of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Her tax cuts for a company that won't be making any money anymore is very similar to Ocasio-Cortez's deranged plan to spend money from the proposed tax cut offered to Amazon for setting up a second headquarters in the state of New York, apparently bringing 25,000 new jobs. AOC actually blocked this, saying no, we will keep the money from the tax cuts and spend it on our own city, clearly not realising at the time that without the headquarters and the jobs it brings, there is no tax to spend. Congratulations, Alison McGovern. You have become the UK's AOC.
Don't need them.
There's global slowing going on. There's global manufacturing slowing going on. And actually the uncertainty generated by Brexit actually adds to that. The way to think of this is we've been in a recovery going on for 10 years, a very slow one, the slowest I've said in 300 years. So you have this huge amounts of uncertainty, global slowing that's going on. And inevitably in Britain, you're going to see investment declining. And I think that's the big economic story. The other thing, Andrew, if you look back in 2008, we didn't have these big plants closing.
Hold on.
Go on.
Who was the biggest recipient of foreign direct investment last year?
Good question. No idea.
The United Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, it's slowing.
Me, did I actually hear that shit? The so-called economist sits there making a ridiculous claim that because of Brexit and the global slowdown, the UK has inevitably had less international investment without having a fucking clue what he's talking about, which is worrying for an economist to not have a clue about what investments are done in the UK. Luckily, Andrew Neil comes in and mocks him for his stupidity, as like Neil said, the UK has had the highest direct investment from overseas in the last year. It seems everyone else on the panel actually took the time to learn some of this before they come on. What a way to make yourself look like an idiot on national TV. This tit must have known full well that Brexit or no Brexit, the car plant being discussed would still be manufacturing an engine that is no longer needed. He just heard the host tell him that seconds before and still continued. It's the company's fault for not diversifying their manufacturing to adapt to the market. Brexit is not to blame for short-sighted management, you half-wit. Get over it.
Well, no, it is slowing. We know the global economy is
Yeah, but it's slowing everywhere. My point, what I'm trying to work out on the Brexit front, because there's undoubtedly on the automotive supply chain, Brexit is not a help. I perfectly get that. But what I'm trying to establish is what has it got to do with Bridgend, this specific decision? Where because of the row over diesel, the move to electric cars...
Well, it comes at the... Remember, we've had the same story about steel in Scunthorpe. I mean, this is not just an auto story, right? We're starting to see companies moving, firms... I mean, this is the first time in a decade we've started to see big plants closing. Remember 2008, this great recession, we didn't have big plants closing. So this is a new story.
No, we did not have big plants failing in the 2008 crash, because that was caused by banks doing risky trades that had to be rescued. So we would have had big banks failing in 2008, which this idiot seems to have conveniently forgot about. If it wasn't for the very expensive bailouts that the bill ended up being footed by us, the UK taxpayer. So technically, big banks did fail, but the government used the public purse to prop them up, so he needs to get his facts right. I shouldn't have to tell him how to do his job.
This is a new story.
In the case of this particular Ford plant, there have been concerns about it for over a decade, long before the Brexit debate happened, and that's because Ford had changed their model and was producing very similar cars and very similar engine pieces throughout the world. To blame this on Brexit is to do these workers, nearly 2,000 of them, a very serious disservice. The fact that this industry, because we have other kinds of technological advancements, because we're moving to electric and moving away from petrol is declining, and it's a very important opportunity.
That's why you need, as I was saying,
you can't have subsidies. You can't have government subsidies delaying the inevitable.
But you have,
but you don't want it.
We have a tax in the UK that's a massive disincentive to investment.
But just
business
really
rates
quickly, this is the perfect opportunity to talk about devolving powers to areas like Wales, to allow them to bring in business, to set their corporate tax rates, and actually encourage business to pick up these workers.
Let me bring in the government minister.
Deal with the global collapse.
And let me just stop it there. So we hear from the voice of reason, Kate Andrews, and of course they try to shout her down. What else is new? Before they shout her down though, she does manage to get the point out that this engine plant has been in dire strait for at least 10 years. And like I said, the business has not moved with the times. But of course both the remoaner MP and the dumbest economist I have ever heard of in my life blames Brexit for it and wants the government to subsidise a company that is not making ends meet. Do these clowns even hear what they are saying? Let's save a business that does not make enough money to stay afloat, so it can fail again at a later date. Smart move, idiots. It does make you wonder though, where are these two weasels defending the probably 100 or so small businesses that likely go under every week in this country? You don't hear them trying to save them with the public purse, do you? Because they don't make large enough contributions to Labour Party, do they? These two shills are a complete disgrace in my opinion.
What's the government going to do about Bridgend?
So what's interesting in this whole debate, and I've got in my constituency Gaydon, which is the headquarters for Aston Martin, and for JLR. Aston Martin has gone to the Welsh Government and is opening their plant there.
I wasn't looking for a dissertation. No, I was simply asking what is the government going to do, if anything?
What I'm trying to say to you is government does a lot to attract investment into Wales. So what the government will do is use its best endeavours, and Alan Cairns, Secretary of State for Wales, is on this, all over this at the moment, to make sure that more investment goes into Wales, to create more jobs.
But Bridgend closes.
And Bridgend, Ford is saying that they will offer a lot of their workers, if they close, other opportunities of work within the company.
Well, within Ford, but Ford is cutting back everywhere.
Well, but they
Where would these other opportunities be?
That's what they've said. I don't know. I've got to look into it.
But Bridgend, in everything you've said, that's an attempt. It's referring to what Alison McGovern said, which is if something like this is closing, you have to help the area. That's fine.
Precisely.
But the assumption behind everything you said is that Bridgend is closing.
Because they...
Yes, that's exactly what he means, but without saying it. The Tory MP stated Aston Martin has plans to move to Wales, but I'm guessing Aston Martin is not who she has been sent to lobby for. So it sounds like Ford is her baby, and she don't care about Aston Martin creating jobs in Wales.
Make engines, and Ford chose before Brexit, before 2016, as we heard, to no longer assemble cars in the UK.
So just to be clear, the government cannot save Bridgend. That's what you're saying?
Because the industry's changing. That's the whole thing. They're moving towards electric engines.
There have been options on the table for the government to help the automotive industry through this.
The best thing the government can do, Alison, the best thing the government can do.
Have never taken those options.
Alison,
it's been extraordinarily frustrating.
The best thing the government can do, which I hope we all agree on, is remove the certainty and deliver Brexit, because compounding the uncertainty will only cause greater problems for business, not just in the automotive sector, but across all the sectors.
The big deal you just said was that the government's encouraged investment in autos or anything else, but the big data we have is exactly the opposite to that. The big economic worry right now... Let me finish. The big economic worry is investment. The investment is declining. So you just told us the great thing the government done was to encourage investment. Investment's declining. It's the biggest economic problem the UK faces. It's kind of strange to say the government's encouraged it when it's overall falling.
The UK was highest for foreign direct investment in Europe last year. But guys, we spent this whole conversation talking about government. What you need is other industries going to South Wales and picking up these skilled workers. Encourage them to do so by offering incentives like devolving corporation tax.
That's easier said than done.
But
and there's a lag between Bridgend closing and coming in. Anyway,
talking about government as a solution is not
other things to talk about throughout the BBC today.
And yet again, Alison is determined to push her agenda, asking the government to come in and bail out a failing engine plant, even though, as the Tory MP says, it's a competitive market. That means it's part and parcel of business. You can't expect someone to come and bail you out because your business model no longer works. When we hear the Tory MP state that the best thing the government can do to remove uncertainty is deliver Brexit, let me tell you that it's something that they need to do because the people have made their choice nearly 3 years ago now. And yet all we have so far is a government that wanted to make us the vassal state of Europe. The Tory party has already tried to betray us once, so doing it again, they know, will end them as a political force. They ain't going to do it. Now, of course, the so-called economist Danny Blanchflower showed his disdain when the MP mentioned needing to do Brexit, as this guy does not care about the democratic vote in 2016 that said we should leave the EU. He sits there saying he don't agree with that at all. Excuse me, mate, you're supposed to be an economist, but you had no clue that the UK was the #1 for direct foreign investment last year. And even after being told, you still sat there in this clip claiming investment was down. What the fuck is this guy even about? I would pipe down if I was him. I'd be so embarrassed to be brought on the show as an expert and not know the basic information everyone else on the panel knew. You're an embarrassment to your profession, in my opinion. You can't even do basic research before appearing on the TV. Either that or you did the research, found out it goes against your narrative, and chose to ignore it, hoping the topic would not come up. So there you have it. These remoaners are on another level of ignorant to do this nonsense on the TV every day. It goes to show how brazen remainers can be with their lies, and no one calls them out for it. When Kate tried, she was shut down. Censorship seems to be the weapon of choice in 2019. That's going to be the end of the video anyway, guys. Remember to leave a like, comment and subscribe as it helps the channel a lot. And I'll see you all in the next video.
Man's gonna kill this shit, you'll need SWAT and medics too. Off for the contract credits due. Punchline king, I'm ahead of you. A&E's where you're heading to. Whip is green but the lights are blue. Bars are shit, take the mic from you. Heating up cheese, I don't like fondue. Bounty on your head, no coconuts. All black attire while I hold my nuts. British boy with American spirit. Just rolling blunts, it's not a game but it's just like bop it. When I'm rolling up cause I feel the grind and chip and razor and flick the lighter and see the ash and just see the cash and get wicked. The bars got her addicted, 40% in my liquid. Pussy juice on my